The message came in at 11:42 p.m., and the strange part wasn't what it said, but how calm I felt reading it. I found someone else. Just accept it. There was no apology. No justification. No explanation. Just a conclusion. Like the past 3 years of my life had quietly expired without needing my consent. My name is Ethan Calloway. I live in Westport, Connecticut, and until that message, I thought I was weeks away from getting married. Her name is Sloan Harrington. Old family money. Private schools. Summer houses that don't get listed online. The kind of background where people don't just date. They evaluate. And I had always known that. I just chose to believe I was the exception. I stared at the message longer than I should have. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I suddenly understood everything before it. The late meetings. The subtle distance. The way she stopped asking about my day. The quiet shift from we to I in her sentences. It had all been happening. Just not to me. Not until now. My phone buzzed again. A second message. You deserve someone who fits your life better. That line almost made me laugh. Not because it was wrong, but because it was the first honest thing she had said in months. I typed back slowly. Finally. And then I set the phone down. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just decisively. Because the truth was, I had been waiting for that message too. Just not consciously. Sloan and I weren't collapsing. We had already collapsed. We were just standing in the debris, pretending the structure still existed. The difference was, she found her exit first. I just chose to recognize mine. The next morning, I didn't call her. I didn't text again. I didn't ask who he was. Because I already knew the answer didn't matter. What mattered was what I was about to do next. I opened my laptop and pulled up the joint documents we had been working on. Venue contracts, guest lists, shared accounts, every trace of a future that no longer existed. And I started removing myself from all of it. Quietly, legally, cleanly. There was no revenge in it. No dramatic declarations. Just careful separation. Like a surgeon closing a wound that had already been cut. By noon, I had spoken to my attorney. By 2, the shared lease was in transition. By 4, the deposits were being redirected. Not all recoverable, but enough to make a point. Control wasn't about winning. It was about not losing more than you already had. And for the first time in months, I felt in control. That evening, Sloan called. I let it ring, not out of pettiness, but because I didn't need to hear her voice to understand her position. She texted instead. Can we talk? I looked at the message, then at the silence in my apartment, then back at the message, and I realized something that unsettled me more than her betrayal ever did. I didn't miss her. Not in that moment. Not even slightly. I replied, there's nothing left to talk about. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, came back again. Then her message arrived. You're really just okay with this? I read it twice, because what she was really asking wasn't about the relationship. It was about my reaction. She expected resistance, emotion, some kind of validation that what we had mattered enough to fight for. But I'd already fought, just not in ways she could see. Before we go further, tell me this. If someone walks away from you without hesitation, do you believe they deserve a reaction or your silence? I didn't answer her question immediately. Instead, I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at a street that hadn't changed at all. Cars passed. Lights shifted. Life continued. And for the first time, I felt like I was part of that movement again. Not stuck in a version of my life that required constant negotiation. I typed back, I'm not okay with what happened. Then I paused, because honesty matters, even at the end, but I'm okay with what it showed me. Her response came faster this time. That's cold, Ethan. I almost smiled, because it wasn't cold. It was clarity. And clarity always feels cold to someone who benefits from your confusion. The next few days passed without contact, and something unexpected started happening. I didn't feel broken. I felt lighter, not because I stopped caring overnight, but because I stopped carrying something that had already ended. A week later, I ran into her. Not planned, not dramatic, just coincidence. A restaurant in downtown Westport, the kind of place we used to go when things were still easy. She was there with him. Of course she was. He looked exactly like I expected. Confident, polished, comfortable in a world that had always been designed for him. And for a moment, I studied the situation. Not emotionally, but analytically. Because this wasn't about comparison anymore. It was about confirmation. She saw me first. Her expression shifted. Not guilt. Not quite. Something closer to uncertainty. Like she wasn't sure how I was supposed to behave. I nodded politely. Nothing more. And started to walk past. Ethan. Her voice stopped me. Not because it had power, but because it had history. I turned. She stepped closer, leaving him at the table. I didn't think you'd just disappear like that. There was again. Not regret. Expectation. The assumption that I would remain emotionally available, even after being replaced. I didn't disappear, I said calmly. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't wanted. She looked at me like she was trying to solve something. Not about me, but about herself. I thought you'd fight for us. That sentence hung in the air longer than it should have, because it revealed everything. She didn't want the relationship. She wanted the proof that she could leave it and still be pursued. And that's when it became completely clear. This was never about love. It was about position. Before I answer, I want you to think about this. If someone expects you to fight for them while they're already choosing someone else, is that love or is that control? I looked at her for a moment, not with anger, not with sadness, just recognition. I did fight, I said, just not in a way that kept me losing. She didn't respond, because there was nothing to respond to. Truth doesn't invite debate. It ends it. I walked away without looking back, not because I was strong, but because there was nothing left behind me that belonged to me anymore. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like freedom.